Big controversy this week over the police publishing photographs of people they want to question in connection with antisocial behaviour, like rioting, for example. The police say it's a useful tool and has resulted in dozens of prosecutions, but now the policing board wants them to stop it because it's seen as an infringement of their human rights. Jim Allister, it's about striking a balance.
Yes, but let's remember that there are fundamental human rights which inform all of this. The right to life, the right to enjoy property, the right to a fair trial, certainly, the right to privacy. But if you have a situation where young hooligans are rampaging in a riot, as we saw in the Ardoyne, and are going to the extremes of dropping blocks on police officers, then surely the right to life informs us that it is essential that there is adequate and fulsome detection of crime. And
but
that is the sole purpose.
In those extreme circumstances, even under the Policing Board Human Rights Committee's recommendations, you could still do it.
There are a lot of people saying that in no circumstances should the young rioting hooligan be identified. Well, I'm sorry. If someone goes out and commits a criminal offence in a public place, then the public interest is that that person is identified and is prosecuted and is convicted.
But even someone who infringes someone else's human rights still has a right to their own rights.
Yes, but not to the point where it makes the law into an ass, which is really what we're talking about here. Remember, when such a person, if they are prosecuted, comes to court, it will be admissible to use the CCTV footage as evidence. So where is the distinction in using it for the purpose of identification? There isn't one. The logical position, and I tell you this, if there was a genuine human rights issue to be adjudicated upon here, then you can bet your bottom dollar that some of those identified in the riot situation in Ardoyne would have tested it in the courts because of the ease of access to legal aid for such people. It hasn't been tested, and it hasn't been tested because it's a phony point.
But let's take into consideration the welfare of young people. We're talking about people under 18, young people. For example, if you take a situation where people are virtually accused of rioting in terms of a collage of photographs in a newspaper, and
there's a picture shown of them rioting.
Well, you see the action.
Yes, but in certain circumstances, they may well be in a riot situation without actually rioting. Of course, if they've got a petrol bomb or something like that, yes, certainly I can understand that. But in a situation where they're clearly identified, and if people, for example, people who in a different community, as it were, see these folks and say, well, your man there, he's guilty of rioting, let's get him. In those circumstances,
there's no evidence that has ever happened.
Well, that can
in theory, you could be a bystander at a riot.
You could dream up all sorts of theories, but let's keep our feet in the ground. And that's the problem with the whole human rights debate. Some people run away with themselves and get so carried away with protecting all these theoretical rights which they expand and exaggerate of the lawbreaker, to the point where they forget that the fundamental public interest in society is to protect the innocent. You know, we have a policing board which sends out police officers to prevent and to detect crime, and then wants, by this ludicrous proposition, to tie their hands behind their back. We really in this society do have to make up our mind. Are we on the side of the lawbreaker or the lawkeeper?
Jim Allister makes a point that it hasn't been challenged. The police say in Derry there was something like 145 people dealt with because of video evidence. In the Belfast riots there were 16 people identified, arrested and charged. Yes. No one has complained about it.
Yes. Well, I mean, I understand the facts as you have stated them, but we have to take into consideration future use. We have to take into consideration the risk that there might be to young people, as I've already illustrated. You have to look at whether young people are going to be stigmatized and so forth. But in all of this, it is a balancing act. there are very few absolute human rights. The right to life is one, but the others there's only three others. But what I'm saying is it is a balance. It is a balance for the police in such circumstances to work out whether it is right to publish photographs of young people, and in certain circumstances it would be wrong to do that.
When of their own volition they go out to deliberately riot, they stigmatise themselves, and the law cannot properly be on the side of preventing the detection of those who go out and indulge in that criminality. If we've reached the point where the law is on the side of preventing the detection of those who break the law, then we've stepped too far in pursuit of worshipping at the idol, at the altar of human rights. We really do need to get our feet on the ground.
It is wrong to dismiss human rights in such
I believe in human rights. I believe in the right to life. I believe in the right to a fair trial. I believe in the right to private property. And that's why when I see people destroy private property and see people threaten human life, I am so exercised that they should be detected.
Jim, as you well know, human rights, the Human Rights Act is a very important piece of legislation. Yes. It represents fundamental values, human freedom and all the rest. It is important. It is important to support them. I don't think that the attitude that you're adopting to human rights, worse being on the altar of human rights and so forth, I don't think that is
but in this specific
language.
Case, in this specific case, Jim Allister says he believes in all of those, but this is overstepping the mark.
It's not overstepping the mark if you are striking the right balance and protecting the rights.
This is not the right balance. Let's remember the Data Protection Act, which is human rights compliant, expressly says in section 29 that the police can use the personal data that they hold about you or me or anyone else to prevent and detect crime. Now, if they can use your personal data, where is the distinction to dare to say that using a photographic image has to be in breach of your human rights? It patently is not. Patently is not.
Let me say, you've got to protect human rights, and you protect human rights by being cautious and striking the right balance.
Gentlemen,
particularly,
you protect them also by detecting those who infringe and breach the fundamental human rights of the right to life.
We'll do it at the usual times next week. Until then, bye-bye.